Everyone, this is Lorena Freya, and welcome to Journey into Witchcraft. Welcome to part 4 of my astrology series. Today we're going to learn about the houses of the horoscope and how they affect you in your life. So we already discussed how the zodiacs show how the planets express themselves. Now we're going to discuss how the houses of the natal chart reveal where the energies play out. There are 12 houses, just like there are 12 zodiacs, and each of them rule certain areas of life, types of people and relationships, environments, ideas, and life circumstances. If you have not already, I highly recommend you look up your natal chart online. You can simply do a Google search for a free natal chart, enter your birth date, time, and location, and it will give you all the details you need. I personally got mine off of astro.com. The first house is the house of self. It represents birth in early life. The first house is also known as the rising sign or ascendant and represents the dawn of a new life as the subject takes their first breath when they're born. The first house is ruled by Mars and Aries in the natural horoscope. This is the house of self. Your life force and the sign of the beginning of the house correlates with the ascendant in your persona. The ascendant and first house are your personal receptionist and represent the self, and it's where you see yourself before you begin to mature and evolve. Planets contained within this house will be colored by the sign in the first house and will be directly projected to those you meet. This is how others see you first. Your early childhood experiences and natural abilities are also represented in the first house, as are your actual birth experience and your spontaneous reactions to other stimuli. Some of the keynotes for the first house include visible personality traits, physical self, and full potential as an individual. The second house is the house of resources. This is the house where we become more aware of the physical world, the body, nature, possessions, and money. It's where we establish our connection to the material world. The second house is the realm of matter where we can touch, see, hear, smell, and taste. This is a realm of all resources, including our inner resources, self-esteem, self-worth, core values, in relationship to the body and the natural world. This is also the realm of what you value, your relationship to money and possessions in the physical realm. The second house is self-sufficiency and sensuality, which is modified by the planets in and the sign of the house. Jupiter in the second house, for example, often represents a person with high self-worth and great ability to make money, and they are also likely to love exploring nature. The third house is the house of communication. This is where we move into our conscious mind and begin to learn about the world around us. In this house, we hone our perception and observation skills and gather information. We find our voice in this house, learn to write, and develop our communication skills. This house also represents our early education learning style and what kind of school student you are or were, as well as your siblings and neighbors. This third house is where we develop awareness of others' points of views and the greater world around us. This is also the realm of transportation and short journeys, emails, gossip, phone calls, and text messaging, and it's ruled by Mercury and Gemini. Some of the keynotes of the third house include problem solving, the mind, how we process things, how we communicate with those around us, your desire to learn, your style of learning, your style of teaching, perceptions, short-term travel, sibling or cousin relationships, and technology. The fourth house is the house of the home. This is where we go within both our home, as in where we live and our inner home, the most private part of our inner life. This area of life represents the foundations of our security. both emotionally and materially. Your upbringing is reflected in this house, along with one or both of your parents and ancestral influences and patterns. In developmental terms, it's where we become aware of our inner emotional landscape and how we respond emotionally to the world around us. This house is associated with the moon in Cancer. One area of life that is often not mentioned is self-care and self-love. How you were nurtured and how you learn to nurture yourself and fulfill your emotional needs are reflected here, including the type of home you create or prefer. Someone with Pluto in the 4th house, for example, may have had a difficult childhood with power struggles of some kind within the home, and may be driven to transform that into their own life, breaking ancestral patterns. Some of the keynotes of the 4th house include home and our roots, where we put our roots and where they come from, how we feel and view the concept of home and mother, our feelings towards earth, traditions, history, physical home structures, parent relationships, how we nurture ourselves, and what makes us feel at home. The 5th house is the house of self-expression. This is associated with the sun in Leo. This is where we develop our creative self-expression and joy in life. The 5th house is a soul's development as the teenager, the adolescent, and the place where we begin to shine our light in the world, where we develop our self-consciousness. This is the realm of children, fun, and joy in life. This is where we take up hobbies and sports, where we learn to play, and it's the first of the relationship houses because it's where we find love affairs. Your performing ability and your life stage are reflected in the 5th house. An emphasis in this house would normally indicate someone drawn to the creative arts and someone who approaches the world in a joyful way. Some of the keynotes of the 5th house include hobbies, interests, entertainment, and any activities that are done out of fun and pleasure, fun and games, play, casual sex, and the first child. The 6th house is the house of service and health. This is associated with Virgo and Mercury. The 6th house is where we find the need to be useful in the world, to be of service in our daily routines and work. Your day-to-day work experience, nature of work, and style of daily living are represented by this house. Health is also associated with the 6th house, as are your pets. In developmental terms, the 6th house is where we begin to figure out how we can make a contribution to the world and to others. It's where we begin to change from the inner landscape of personal development and grow into the outer world of adulthood. The 6th house is a response to the world around us and a desire to create some order in the world. As such, cleansing and hygiene are connected to your response to all outer stimuli and is reflected here. Some of the keynotes of the 6th house include the vitality of one's body, the work that one does out of necessary, pets, and general health and well-being, service, daily routines, and duty. The 7th house is the house of relationship and marriage. In the 7th house, our soul takes a big inhale and it really enters the realm of the outer or adult world. This house is ruled by Libra and Venus. This house correlates with the descendant, the point opposite of the ascendant, which reflects what you are attracted to and what you attract in others. The 7th house is associated with all significant interpersonal relationships, including the main partner or partners in life. This house also includes adult children, significant business or work relationships, and significant friendships. The nature and the patterns in your relationships are reflected in this house. Another area associated with this house is the disowned self, which is part of the self that we don't like and that we see in others. This can often be seen as something in others that triggers a strong emotional reaction of dislike. As the second of the relationship houses, the seventh house represents where we join in partnership by either living with or marrying a person. The eighth house builds on this in long-term relationships. Some of the keynotes of the seventh house includes all one-on-one relationships, including marriages, romantic partners, business partners, and even enemies, legal contracts, and long-term partners. The eighth house is the house of intimacy and death. The eighth house is where we are plunged into all things associated with the dark, and is associated with Pluto and Scorpio. This is the realm of deeply bonded relationships, the long-term partnership that is connected emotionally, psychologically, and sexually. It's the energy of merging of life, resources, and spiritual bodies. This is the third relationship house, and where the true intimacy of relationship exists in long-term relationships. This is the realm of both physical and psychological death, and psychological transformation and regeneration. Inherences and other often taboo subjects are associated with this area of the horoscope, such as the realms of magic and the occult. This is the realm of deep therapy or soul exploration and your relationship to all shared power and karmic material. Power and powerless are the realm of the eighth house, and manipulative and/or abusive power dynamics can show up in this house. This includes your own shadow psychological realms, the parts of you that you may not prefer not to look too closely, though this is also the realm of your inner gold or buried treasure, and is a fearless exploration of your eighth house and can bring great rewards. Some of the keynotes of the eighth house includes our attitudes towards change, death, rebirth, and crisis. It also rules our sexuality and our personal growth, transformation, occult, spouse's money, and inheritances. The ninth house is the house of the higher self. The ninth house takes us out into the realms of expansion and exploration of the world and higher learning. It is ruled by Jupiter and Sagittarius. The ninth house is the area associated with all forms of higher study, philosophy, and personal beliefs. How you experience whatever the divine is for you will be reflected here, and therefore religion is also associated with this house. This house can be the place of dogma, but generally it is about expanding the mind and consciousness. Developmentally, the ninth house takes us on a vision quest to seek the meaning of life. In the ninth house, we seek truth, freedom, wisdom, and knowledge of natural law, as well as how the world and nature work. The energy of exploration also means that travel is represented in this house, including long journeys of the mind. Some of the keynotes of the ninth house includes our belief system, ideologies and religion, all kinds of higher learning and philosophy, worldview, travel, second life partner, spirituality, and law. The 10th house is the house of the public self or the house of career. The 10th house is the most public part of your chart, and yet is where we reflect on how we are seen in the world. It is ruled by Saturn in Capricorn. The 10th house is the nature of our contribution or mission in life, often is said to be our career, and hopefully these will be in alignment. Since this is where you are most visible in the world, this house is also associated with your public reputation and status. This is the realm of the wise and elder, and where we create man-made laws of gravitas, where we build financial and physical security. Duty and responsibility for others are also represented here, as is integrity. Like the fourth house, this house is also associated with one of the parents, usually the parent who's more out in the world than the other, or who is represented as the authority, and your relationship to authority and establish security, such as the institutions that govern our world. Some of the keynotes of the 10th house include our position in society and what we contribute to humanity, our careers, ambitions, and our achievements, the dominant parent, power, and influence. The 11th house is the house of community and friendship. The 11th house takes us out into the community in all of its forms and is associated with Uranus in Aquarius. This is the realm of groups of friends, organizations, and associations. The 11th house is also associated with social causes, social consciousness, and politics. A strong emphasis here means the person is likely to be a humanitarian and have an interest in ecology. Another association for this house is the internet, due to the community aspect of the house, particularly social media. Latent or undiscovered abilities can also be found here, and the house is associated with the future, big goals, new ideas, and discoveries. Developmentally, we move from creating solid ambition, rules, and foundations in the world in the 10th house, and now we move into the realm of making social connections. In this house, we learn to detach from the rules imposed by the authority in the 10th house, to go our own way, and to explore our own realm of genius to create our future. Some of the keynotes of the 11th house include our friends and our social lives in general, also the groups and organizations that we belong to, community, wishes, charity, and earned wealth. The 12th house is the house of the unconscious. In the 12th house, we enter the energy of the unconscious, and this is the realm of all things mysterious and mystical, and it is associated with Neptune and Pisces. This house is the time before birth and the time before death, the amniotic fluid before the first inhale in the first house, the prenatal experience, and the time of fading before the very last exhale. All forms of altered states are represented here, including chemically induced states and meditative states. Creative and intuitive, this house connects us to transpersonal knowledge and understanding. This house is a liminal space, the space between worlds, and is associated with all transitional spaces and activities such as trance, hypnotism, and mysteries. Seclusion and secluded places are all associated with this house, such as prisons, monasteries, retreat centers, and hospitals. This is a place of dreaming, strong empathy, and the mysterious unknown. Some of the keynotes of the 12th house includes all that is unknown underneath the surface, including secrets, dreams, hidden strengths and weaknesses, and karma, fears, hidden desires, fantasies, rest and sleep. Before we jump into the planets in each of these houses and their interpretations, I do want to throw in a little disclaimer. There are multiple interpretations of the houses in each of these planets. So based on the planet descriptions and the house descriptions that I have mentioned, the house descriptions that I've mentioned before in this episode, as well as the planet descriptions that I mentioned in the last episode, go check out my zodiac episode. You can write your own interpretation that you believe fits your life best. First, we have the sun. The position of the sun by house in the natal chart reveals an area of life where we need to feel special. It is where we distinguish ourselves from others. This is where our personalities shine. The sun in the first house. You identify strongly with the image you present to others. You make an impression on others. You have presence, and you know it. You are self-conscious, although you may prefer to project a strong image. If your sun is in the second house, you take pride in what you own, and you have a strong drive for security. You have staying power, and you hate to let others down once you've made a promise. Avoid over-identifying what you have. Concentrate on proving your worth through your strong value system and your incredible ability to stick with things and with people. Take pride in the solid and secure foundations that you build, as well as the lasting relationships you aim to maintain while being careful to avoid possessiveness. If your sun is in the third house, you need activity and a change of scenery often, or you feel restless. You take pride in your mental agility and your friendships. You are able to adapt quite easily to whatever environment you're in. There is a strong need to communicate your knowledge to others and to learn. Your curiosity is endless. Take pride in your intellectual or communicative abilities without feeling the need to lord it over others or to always be in the know. If your sun is in the fourth house, you invest much of your pride and energy into your personal and private life, your home, and your family. Privacy is important to you. You are naturally protective of your family, including your heritage and of your personal life. Avoid being defensive as you work to build a secure foundation for yourself and the people you love. If your sun is in the fifth house, you want to be noticed for your unique and special qualities and your creativity. You are happiest when you are expressing yourself in a special way, and attention comes your way as a result. You have a flair for drama and/or sports. You are proud of your fun-loving attitude towards life. As you demonstrate your ability to shine, avoid grabbing center stage all the time. Your happy disposition is enough to get noticed, but do find creative ways to express yourself, as this is the path to true happiness for you. If your sun is in the sixth house, the work that you do and the services that you offer are very important to your sense of identity. In order to feel good about yourself, you need to be busy with daily activities and to produce work you can be proud of. If your sun is in the seventh house, you take pride in your ability to negotiate and to establish harmony in your relationships. It is important for you to have a partner, as you feel incomplete without one. You are motivated to become well-liked, and you are especially sensitive to rejection. If your sun is in the eighth house, you have a great urge to go farther or deeper into life every step of the way. You want to experience more, and your desires are both powerful and intense. It is hard for you to find satisfaction in common experiences, and you have magnetic power if you choose to use it wisely. You are fascinated with what lies under the surface, and at some point in your life, self-improvement is a big interest. You are attracted to unexplored or taboo areas of life, and you avoid all things superficial. If your sun is in the ninth house, you have a deep need to understand the world around you. You have high ideals, and you have your eye on what's on the horizon. You are looking ahead, and at times can seem quite restless. You are proud of your knowledge and your morals. Be sure to avoid self-righteousness in your enthusiasm to share your knowledge. When used correctly, you are a tolerant, adventurous, and curious person, and you want to see the best in people and in life. If your sun is in the 10th house, the urge to work towards a goal for success and accomplishment and/or for power is part of your makeup. You are uncomfortable in any position in which you must take orders from someone else. Recognize your ambitions and your need for authority without going overboard. Seek out a career that allows you to manage rather than be managed if possible. It is crucial that you accept the part of you that is ambitious, but take pains not to over-identify with an image that is not really you. If your sun is in the 11th house, you are a humanitarian who aims to treat everyone as equals. You seek to be unique and original, and you do your best to avoid bias and prejudice. Social status is less important to you than belonging to a group of diverse personalities. Your identity, in fact, is somehow linked to a larger unit than yourself. If your sun is in the 12th house, you have a tendency to be introspective and need some space and seclusion in order to pull up your strength. You may avoid the spotlight, and if you do find yourself in a public role, you tend to hide your true self behind that role. The moon in the houses can reveal where and how we seek emotional satisfaction. The moon in the first house. Your feelings are right out there for everyone to see, and you can come across as emotional and impatient, or nurturing and caring, or both. Your first reaction is emotional, especially if the moon is in close proximity within 10 degrees of the ascendant degree. You need emotional stimulation, movement, and freedom to express yourself in order to feel happy and fulfilled. If your moon's in the second house, when it comes to money, you can be generous and frivolous in your spending habits one day and frugal the next. You can be quite afraid of being in debt, and you need to feel that the bills are paid in order to feel secure and safe. This is likely also true of savings, as you fear being without. If your moon's in the third house, you are very responsive, communicative, and curious. You can have a talent for imitating others and or picking up languages. You might either intellectualize your emotions rather than truly feel them and deal with them, or you can communicate with excessive emotion. Some of you may do both at different times, and as you mature and develop, you learn to find a balance. If your moon's in the fourth house, you long for a sense of true belonging, but you may be quite restless in your search. You might change residence frequently or simply feel the need to make many changes in your home. If your moon's in the fifth house, you love to share emotional experiences with loved ones and have a flair for the dramatic. Love affairs are magnetic and intense, and you don't take them lightly by any means, although you may go through much change with regard to your romances. You are attached to children, whether they're your own or not. Your creative hobbies are subject to relatively frequent changes. You have innate artistic talent. You have a vivid imagination and are given to daydreaming often. There is a sense that you are always in touch or trying to get in touch with your inner child. If your moon's in the sixth house, you have an emotional need to be useful, to work productively, to be organized and on top of things, and to lead a healthy life. If these matters are chaotic in your life, it's a symptom of emotional unrest. You need a lot of variety on the job, to be stimulated and engaged in order to feel happy. Some of you might seem to change jobs often, forever in search of the perfect fit job. Acceptance that any job requires some level of routine is hard for you. If your moon's in the seventh house, you are drawn to partnerships and prefer to have a companion for emotional support. You are not a person who would happily take in a movie by yourself or dine alone, for example. A partner awakens feelings in you that you may never know you had, and you seem to need a partner to learn about your own needs and feelings. If your moon's in the eighth house, while you have a strong need for emotional security, you are also a person who is drawn to pushing your own limits, and many lifestyle changes can be a result of this need to change or reinvent yourself emotionally. You are always fascinated with how people work, taboos, secrets, and all that is forbidden or hidden. Sexual unrest or an apparent need to constantly change sexual partners or to challenge yourself sexually may be a symptom of emotional insecurity. If your moon's in the ninth house, this can indicate a deep longing for stimulation above and beyond the everyday mundane routine. You are a philosophical sort, interested and curious about the world, other people, and perhaps different cultures. You can be extremely restless and discontented if you don't have a definite goal in mind. If your moon's in the 10th house, this might indicate an emotional need for recognition, popularity, acknowledgement, and achievement. You can be quite charismatic. You are at your emotional best when you lead a structured and responsible life, but it can take time to get there. If your moon's in the 11th house, this might indicate an emotional need for a feeling of belonging with and support from friends and associations with groups. You look to acquaintances for support and offer the same in return. A changeable or unstable social life might be a reflection of inner emotional unrest. Waxing and waning feelings for others can cause problems in your relationships. If your moon's in the 12th house, this might indicate an emotional attachment and sensitivity to all that is ethereal, groundless, and eternal. As sensitive as you are, you often have delayed reactions to your own emotional experiences. You need frequent moments of solitude in order to recharge yourself emotionally, and this need, while strong, can also lead to feelings of isolation and of being misunderstood. Next, we're going to move on to our planets, and we'll start off with Mercury, which is our planet of communication. So if you're a Mercury in the first house, you are mercurial in appearance or manner, especially if Mercury is close to or within 10 degrees of the ascendant. You're restless, adaptable, changeable, easily distracted, versatile, and nimble. While you enjoy talking, you might often monopolize the conversation or fail to listen. You might be too busy thinking about what you will say next to truly listen. If your Mercury is in the second house, you have a very practical mind and intelligence, seeing the obvious, most logical answer to any predicament often well before others. You don't like to be put on the spot or pushed into talking or coming to a conclusion. Studies are similar. You need to work at your own pace. If your Mercury is in the third house, you might be especially curious and inquisitive. You are generally very interested in reading, teaching, speaking, and exchanging ideas, keeping current with the daily news, and perhaps gossiping. Your interests are many and varied, sometimes to the point that you barely skim the surface of any one topic. If your Mercury is in the fourth house, you are an extremely imaginative person who dreams up all sorts of unusual ideas and plans. Your thinking is quite subjective and in some cases narrow or biased. Some of you might enjoy working at home or keeping a lively intellectual atmosphere in your home. If your Mercury is in the fifth house, you tend to use your voice, whether written or spoken, as a means of creative self-expression. You can be witty and humorous, an engaging communicator, and a fun friend. Playing games is appealing, especially ones that employ your intellect. You love tricks, jokes, play on words, and mimicry. It's possible you're skilled at impersonations. Some of you could be clever at lying. You can have a tendency to promise more than you can deliver, or overstate your case. If your Mercury is in the sixth house, you are a person who thinks of all the details that others often forget. Your mind is always turned on, which can make you a little nervous. You're excellent at sorting things out, organizing, and making lists and associations. With your attention to the details and the mechanics, however, you might miss the bigger point. If your Mercury is in the seventh house, you have a great love of debate, if only to get closer to your own thoughts and opinions. Bouncing ideas off others helps you to make a decision, although coming to definite conclusions can be painfully difficult for you. You see the other side of the coin, but you might often play devil's advocate. If your Mercury is in the 8th house, you are especially curious about what motivates people, as well as all that is mysterious, taboo, secret, and psychological. You're excellent at analyzing people and getting at their motivations, as well as developing strategies. You may have a good mind for finances, medicine, and other subjects that require research and investigation. If your Mercury is in the 9th house, you are eternally curious and hungry for knowledge. You enjoy studying and learning and do it not because you have to, but because you want to. Exchanging ideas and personal philosophies with others is gratifying. You can be especially buoyant, enthusiastic, and even inspiring in your communications. If your Mercury is in the 10th house, you are good with language and you generally use this talent in your profession. With your authoritative air, you're talented at communicating and negotiating with those in authority. You might have more than one job going on once, much of the time. You could change your career directions frequently, or you could be attracted to jobs that keep you on the move. If your Mercury is in the 11th house, you are endlessly curious about people, group interactions, community affairs, trends, and teams. You are attracted to people who bring new ideas into your experience and who have something novel to contribute on an intellectual level. You are very forward-looking and fair-minded. If your Mercury is in the 12th house, you are not very quick to speak or communicate, especially in childhood, as you need to develop trust in your own abilities to express yourself. You make an excellent confidant. You are very discreet, and secrets go into the vault. Making matters too complex comes from overanalyzing motives or hunches, then have problems acting on your intuition as a result. Let's move on to Venus, the planet of love. If your Venus is in the 1st house, you are a likable, magnetic, attractive, and charming person whose heart is often on your sleeve. Unless Venus is very challenged, you are easy to befriend, diplomatic, and warm in self-expression. You tend to attract others to you quite readily, and rarely come on too strong or aggressively. If your Venus is in the 2nd house, tangible expressions of love and affection are important to you. Your tastes are usually simply extravagant, well-defined, strong, and something you are proud of. Some might feel you have a talent for finding items of value and good taste. You are attracted to items of quality. You may use generosity for your own benefit. In other words, you might give gifts with expectation of reward. Some of you might be hedonistic and overly attached to winning admiration from a partner at the expense of discovering true love. Your neck and upper chest are erogenous zones, and your voice is unusually attractive. If your Venus is in the 3rd house, you are verbally expressive, diplomatic, and aim to be tactful. You easily win others over with your words, especially if it's because of a likable facility with language, a beautiful voice, or a diplomatic use of words. You readily give out compliments. Some of you might use flattery to your own benefit at the risk of being ingenuine. You are generally a very good mediator, aiming to settle arguments quickly and restoring at least temporary peace. If your Venus is in the 4th house, you seek balance, beauty, harmony, and peace in your home and domestic life. You might be especially attracted to luxury or quality or comfort items in the home, and you likely have an eye for interior decorating. There is a loving, personal touch to the way you decorate your home. Your love is decidedly sentimental, and you show your affection through nurturing and displays of sympathy. You don't give your heart out easily, but when you do it with great emotion. If your Venus is in the 5th house, interest in romantic connections may have started young. Playful, sensual, and amorous, you are in love with love. You thrive on a romantic attention, and it is easy and natural for you to always have a crush or romantic interest. There is a romantic, playful side to you that is unmistakable. It keeps you young at heart. If your Venus is in the 6th house, your expressions of love and affection are practical and helpful. Being of service to a partner is especially important to you. In fact, you might go to great lengths to be available at all costs to a loved one. While you may not be flowery or showy when it comes to expressing love, you show your love by your availability, rendering services, doing practical things for a loved one, and other thoughtful little things. Many of you are talented at design work, as you appreciate and pay much attention to all the little parts that make up a whole, with the goal of finding order and harmony in these systems. If your Venus is in the 7th house, you live for relationships. It is hard for you to think about being alone. Harmony is most important to you, so it's unlikely you will attempt to dominate a lover. You are a peacemaker, sometimes going to great lengths to achieve a balanced, harmonious relationship. Be careful not to bend over backwards just to keep the peace. You may be taken advantage of. Your marriage partner may be especially attractive, charming, or well-off. You're extremely attractive, agreeable, and charming, drawing others to you magnetically. If your Venus is in the 8th house, intensity is what you seek in your love relationships, so that casual encounters are not necessarily your game. You are easily bored with mechanical interactions between partners and might prefer drama in your relationships to anything mundane or superficial. However, you also feel being vulnerable in love and in youth. You may control your emotions in love. Fears of being betrayed may be at the heart of your somewhat jealous and possessive nature in love. If your Venus is in the 9th house, you are attracted to or you tend to attract people of different cultural backgrounds. A sense of adventure is appealing to you. You're not especially clingy and you expect a certain amount of freedom in a partnership. You want to feel like you are growing as an individual, and you won't be happy in a relationship that is restrictive or confining. In fact, have a great love for a feeling of freedom or limitlessness. Your hips and thighs may be especially attractive. If your Venus is in the 10th house, others tend to respect you for your charming manner, and you may have many admirers, although some of these admirers from afar, as there is an aura about you that is charming yet strangely and intriguingly distant. You have a great need to be recognized or admired for your charm, beauty, or loving manner, but should be careful not to become too wrapped up in what others think of you, as you might come across as phony or superficial. If your Venus is in the 11th house, the friendship level of your relationship needs to be genuine in order for you to sustain romantic interest. You tend to focus on a person's unique qualities, those traits that make him or her stand out as the most attractive. Your relationships must possess some kind of unconventional element in order to keep your interest levels high. Calves and ankles are either erogenous zones for you or parts of your body that are particularly attractive. If your Venus is in the 12th house, you are big on romance and you tend to live and breathe your partner once you're hooked. Not the best at defining your boundaries, where your needs and your partner's needs separate. You can get hurt in love rather easily. You can also feel used quite readily. Now let's move on to Mars, the planet of energy, action, and desire. If Mars is in the 1st house of your chart, it is a commanding position, and is even more if Mars is also conjunct the ascendant. Your reactions to new situations are immediate and pressing. You are an active, energetic, dynamic, enterprising, and possibly even forceful or aggressive person at times, unless Mars is in strong aspect to Saturn or Neptune. If your Mars is in the second house, you are likely to be a hard worker, although you appreciate the process and might be slower than some as you focus on the method and tend to each step deliberately and carefully. You love to produce things of practical value. With making money and acquiring possessions, you are ambitious, but you might be impatient or impulsive when it comes to spending. You can be quite possessive, both of material things and of people. If your Mars is in the third house, you speak your mind quite readily, sometimes shooting from the hip when it comes to expressing your ideas and opinions. You tend to know a lot about a variety of subjects and like to share that knowledge with others, sometimes too forcefully. When communicating, you are generally very direct and clear. You can easily get worked up about what others might think are trivial matters. If your Mars is in the fourth house, you are fiercely protective of your close friends and family. Anger may be deeply felt and possibly deeply buried, and it can be very hard for others to uncover your true motives. You might be passive-aggressive in your approach, which could lead to resentments if you're not careful or confident enough to take a more direct approach to getting what you want. If your Mars is in the fifth house, you have a strong love of pleasure, and you tend to directly and perhaps impulsively pursue romance. Many of you are sports lovers, and anything with an element of risk appeals to you or entertains you. You put a lot of energy into the pursuit of entertainment, satisfaction, games, and pleasure. If your Mars is in the sixth house, you tend to work hard, sometimes to the point of exhaustion. You put a lot of energy into your work and would do best working for yourself or for someone else, but independently, as you could quickly become impatient or if other members of a team are not working as fast as you. You are also easily upset with procrastination. You can be very skilled at organizing and reorganizing, sorting, classifying, and analyzing. You put a lot of energy into any job you do, and you can easily become riled up or defensive if someone criticizes or intrudes upon the work that you do. If your Mars is in the seventh house of your natal chart, you need a partner who challenges you. And your close personal relationships can be especially passionate, active, or physical. You may be drawn to people who are more assertive or aggressive than you. Alternatively, you find or discover your own assertiveness through a special someone. There can be a marked impulsive tendency in your one-on-one relationships. Certainly, you need your connections to maintain a high level of passion and energy. You can be particularly good at mediating, counseling, troubleshooting, debate, politics, or working with the law. If your Mars is in the eighth house, shades of the signs Scorpio can be found in your desire nature. You may not experience true passion until later in life, but when you do, it is magical and infectious. You have some fears of betrayal and loss that compromise your trust from time to time. You can be extremely hardworking on projects that interest you, and you make a fabulous researcher, investigator, or psychologist. Passion projects are vital. They can get you out of bed in the morning. If your Mars is in the ninth house, you enjoy a healthy sense of adventure and adore a rousing debate or a challenge of learning new things. This position has a Sagittarian flavor. Watch for a tendency to become angry or hurt if others disagree with you, as it can all be too easy to take differences of opinion very personally. As well, in your enthusiasm to uncover truths, you may be a little too pushy. If your Mars is in the 10th house, an urge to organize and to be practical can amount to a minor obsession with this position. Your career motivation is constant and relentless, and people in your life need to respect your independent drive and focus. You are task-oriented and you are at your best and most effective when you're in control of your time. In your relationships, you may often take the lead when it comes to organizing activities. If your Mars is in the 11th house of your natal chart, you like to organize events, activities, and sometimes take the lead a little too often. However, for the most part, you're an engaging, helpful friend who is ready to jump in and take action when need be. This is a wonderful, rare quality. If your Mars is in the 12th house of the natal chart, you can struggle with asserting yourself in direct, natural ways in your youth. But with time and experience, and perhaps some hard work, you're likely to learn to work with this energy rather than allow it to work against you. Watch for a tendency to feel defeated before you've given something a real shot. You are extraordinarily resourceful, and you can handle many things on your own or in uniquely creative ways. Let's move on to Jupiter. Jupiter's position by house in the natal chart reveals where we express our generosity and tolerance. It shows where we focus on improving our lives and in whom or in what we trust. When Jupiter is in your first house, you present a jovial, kind, altruistic manner to the world around you, generally beginning any new undertaking with optimism and faith. Your belief in the power of positive thinking takes you places. Generally speaking, you are a very principled person with strong morals. When Jupiter is in the second house, others might think you are lucky with money, gifts, or personal possessions. In fact, you are extremely resourceful. You take great pleasure and comfort in the world of the five senses. Sometimes this position points to overindulgence in these things. A strong self-image or feelings of self-worth contribute to success. When Jupiter is in the third house, you are forward-looking, a real planner. You are endlessly curious and enjoy making happy connections with others. Sharing ideas with others is important to you. You take great pleasure in doing so. You are able to see the big picture and thus often are turned to for advice. With your sincere interest in others, you easily put people at ease in social situations. When Jupiter is in the fourth house, your strong instincts tend to guide you, particularly on a professional level. You readily make warm connections with others, particularly valuing your family and close to loved ones. Old age is expected to be pleasant and rewarding. Strong morals were reinforced in your childhood. You dream of and will usually attain a large or spacious home. You likely feel that happiness is home. When Jupiter is in the fifth house, you are generous, playful, and warm, particularly with children and in your romantic life. Prosperous areas for you tend to be the creative ones, entertainment, children, and recreation. You are talented at teaching, showing patience and love for the learning process and those learning. When Jupiter is in the sixth house, you have high standards in your business dealings with others, believing that one should always treat others with respect and faith. This may mean missing out on business opportunities in the short term, but others tend to build faith in your honest approach in the long run. You may help those less fortunate than you. Attraction to rich foods may be a problem in your life. You generally take great pleasure in the work that you do in being useful to others. When Jupiter is in the seventh house, cultivating close, rewarding partnerships is important to you. You are talented at negotiations, believing strongly in fair play, and you are excellent at mediating conflicts. Legal matters may be fortunate for you. You value people in relationships and might succeed best in partnership. Relating as equals is important to you. You might naturally use charm and grace to reach your goals. When Jupiter is in the eighth house, you are talented at strategy, research, and investigation. Getting to the root of any problem is important to you as you instinctively feel that this is where the answer lies. Similarly, You take great pleasure in unraveling mysteries and solving complex problems. You are naturally giving to a partner both emotionally and materially. Taboos don't easily shock you. When Jupiter's in the ninth house, you are always hungry for knowledge and wisdom. With your naturally philosophical nature, you enjoy sharing your opinions and knowledge with others. You can be a natural teacher and you love the learning process. Freedom of movement and expression are crucial to you. You can easily be inspirational and find success in travel, education, teaching, sports, publishing, and foreign cultures. When Jupiter is in the 10th house, you readily take charge and use a winning, kindly approach while doing so. Others might see you as lucky when it comes to your career and business opportunities. It is natural for you to excel, and if others help you along the way, it is probably because of your winning attitude. In truth, you're ethical, mature, and resourceful. You value achievement and manifestation, as well as those who take responsibility for their lives. Position or status can be quite important to you. When Jupiter's in the 11th house, your social life means a lot to you, and you take great pleasure in communicating with your friends, as well as involvement in teams and groups or with your community. Friends tend to benefit you. They can be influential or otherwise very helpful. You are altruistic by nature, and you especially value people and personal freedom. You're very open to new methods and progress, and you display great tolerance and humanitarianism. If your Jupiter's in the 12th house, it is often considered the guardian angel position. Something seems to save you just in the nick of time, probably due to your inborn faith in the universe. Solitude, working alone, and meditation can bring you great pleasure and a sense of rejuvenation. You are merciful and generous, often anonymously. On to Saturn. Saturn's position in the house in your natal chart has a powerful and life-altering influence. Saturn influences make you work, take care of your responsibilities, and fit into society. When Saturn's in your first house, the first house stands for the way in which an individual projects personal energies onto others. This house is fundamental in defining an individual's personality, and Saturn's presence here is particularly significant. Saturn in the first house, people might have a stern exterior. People may comment, "You look so different when you smile." When you smile, the stern exterior drops. With Saturn in the second house, you might be unduly pessimistic about your own ability to get possessions. Avoid the pessimism. Then again, you might be overly cautious about the way you invest your finances. Saturn in the third house may make you feel ill at ease when you go about your day-to-day life. You may come across as cold and reserved. You may be a man or woman of few words. This can turn some people off. You can use this to your advantage by listening to people. That way you don't have to do too much talking, yet people will love you for listening. Saturn's influence adds a sense of responsibility to fourth house functions. One might feel the need to nurture more than most, perhaps to overcompensate for their own feelings of being neglected. The truth is, mothering and nurturing can be fun. Saturn might take away that element of fun and make it a chore. Don't let that happen to you. Recognize your style and make up your mind to enjoy yourself. In a broader sense, the fourth house extends to the community, hometown, and country. With Saturn influences, you will choose to be quietly patriotic and loyal. The fifth house is the house of play and self-expression. Saturn's influences in this house compare in importance to those in the first house. The fifth house is all about spontaneity. Saturn seriously impedes spontaneity. You might be recognized as the party pooper or a bad date. Don't let that happen to you. Individuals with Saturn in the 5th house might find it difficult to play or do fun things. Saturnine guilt and responsibility might make you search for a good reason to have fun. All work and no play might stress you out to the point of neurosis. When Saturn happens to be in the 6th house of your natal chart, you may very well be a workaholic. You may forget that you are working only to make a living. You may fall into the trap of living to work. Avoid doing this. In any case, you will have a strong sense of responsibility in your attitude to work, and you will take service to others rather seriously. You may be overly concerned with what you feed yourself and spend time worrying about the food habits of your loved ones. All of the 6th house functions are overemphasized, a double whammy. Saturn in the 7th house may mean a number of things. If we follow the energy resonance line of thinking, then you are probably drawn to Saturnine people. You may very well have fewer relationships. While in a relationship, you may feel weighed down by a sense of responsibility, which may turn you off of relationships. Or you may find it difficult to build bridges with someone else. That may, in turn, keep you away from relationships. When your Saturn's in the 8th house, it will make you simply resist transformations, change, and growth. You will find it very difficult to accept changes in your life. Any change will be stressful for you, bringing in anxiety and worry. Be aware to this influence. Understand that change is something that you don't react to well. Prepare for change. Take time to chart out a course or action plan whenever change is imminent. Read a book on managing change in your life or at work. Change, if managed well, can make your life richer and better. Saturn in the 9th house indicates a practically minded individual. You are unlikely to take to flights of fantasy or fancy ideas. You might even be closed to new ideas. Your thinking might be overly closed and conservative. Don't close your mind. Be aware that while practicality is a great quality, the world needs people to come up with new ideas in order to move forward or keep going. While the 6th house rules work, the 10th house rules the work that you identify with. In the context of home and family, the 10th house signifies your attitude while playing the fathering role. Saturn in the 10th house makes you take your fathering responsibilities seriously. You will be concerned with the development and growth of your child in real-world terms. At work, you may have the desire to lead or guide coworkers. Saturn in the 11th house works much in the same way as the 7th, except that the nature of the relationships are different. You may find socializing tiresome and prefer to stay alone. Many people with this position feel some disdain for the superficial workings of casual friendships and of the group. That is, they feel uncomfortable and self-conscious about going through the motions, doing and saying the right things, and so forth. Each planet in the 12th house represents energies that an individual may be denying even exist. Saturn in this house could mean an early life setback, which prompts you to push the realities of life into the unconscious. People with this position of Saturn often are plagued with the guilt, and it is difficult for them to know where the guilt is coming from, or even to define their anxieties. Let's move on to Uranus. By house, Uranus shows individuals where to look to stir things up, put a new spin on situations, and go against established thought or order. When Uranus is in the 1st house, it alters the way an individual projects personal energies onto others. You're likely to seek, nay, demand, freedom in the way you present yourself to the world. Dressing simply but quirkily, you will have no problems in asserting yourself. You're not only shy to let everyone know where you stand on issues, in fact, you take pride in presenting your unique perspective. I am a simple soul with few wants and needs, is what you tell yourself. When your Uranus is in the second house, your attitude to real-world possessions differs from most. You may look at money and cars as a means to an end. If you find that they support the quirky lifestyle that your heart desires, then you are all right with having some of your own. You may decide, though, that these things tie you down to one place and hence subvert your freedom of movement. If this happens to you, then you are likely to shy away from acquiring worldly possessions. The possessions you desire are often ones that help you lead the free lifestyle you desire. You may value money in the bank if money can buy you the freedom you crave. When your Uranus is in the third house, you act and communicate with people around you in an offbeat, eccentric, and zany way. Naturally friendly, you very often make people smile with your wit and easy, good humor. People look upon you to ease a boring day, knowing you will perhaps have something new to say about the mundane. Your eccentricity may puzzle and sometimes annoy some. You win them over with your humility, open mind, and honesty. Creativity and communication and all that you do sets you apart from the most. Uranus in the fourth house may alter your nurturing style significantly. You seek unusual ways to express your desires in this arena that sets you apart from most. The concept of nurturing doesn't necessarily come naturally to you, or if it does, you do it entirely differently. Your independent streak might make you want to run away from nurturing when it's proffered to you. As a nurturer, you can be very loving and caring, but sometimes you withdraw and prefer aloofness. Fifth house play and self-expression are happy hunting grounds for Uranus. Creativity and change are the bywords of Uranus in the fifth. You take great pleasure in doing things differently. You are naturally creative and find it easy to implement change. As a teenager, you may decide to date an older person. You love relationships will always start with a twist. Charming and zany in love, you will create your own world with ease. Your love of freedom will make you choose activities that sound weird to others. You will go about life with zest and find challenges in all that you do. Others will find your offbeat lifestyle stimulating. When your Uranus is in the sixth house, you are likely to enjoy work associated with science and technology. Working, especially day-to-day stuff, may be more of a chore to you than most. Your freedom-loving instincts propel you to seek out work that allows you to be the most personal freedom. When your Uranus is in the seventh house, partners and people who you're in a one-on-one relationship with will complain about your erratic and inconstant ways. However, they will be charmed by your genuineness and simplicity. You may shy away from making a commitment and see relationships as a necessary evil. Your freedom-loving ways make you hate feeling tied down. The whole idea of relationships may be slightly alien to your basic nature. In a partner, you may search for a certain aloofness or love of personal freedom to feel secure. Your ideal partner enjoys his or her personal freedom as much as you do. Uranus is quite at home in the eighth house of resurrections. You are naturally open and support change. Change is good is your constant motto. Reinventing yourself from time to time sounds like a good idea to you. You couldn't possibly have it otherwise. Life would be boring without change. Your style and pace of bringing about change, though, may leave others dazed and breathless. The style of change that you prefer can be destructive to those around you. Your good intentions are never at doubt, though. It's just that you are addicted to your ideas, and you sometimes overlook human emotions. Your natural impatience with status quo drives you to move fast, leaving the staid behind. When your Uranus in the ninth house, you are likely to be comfortable with new ideas, radical philosophies, and thoughts that oppose the traditional. Playing around with new ideas by yourself or with others is your passion. Traveling, meeting new people, reading, and other such mind expansion activities will interest you. Conservative people might turn you off, and you might find their ways claustrophobic. Any activity that calls for higher thinking is an opportunity for you to add to your unique and creative spin. Your natural instincts oppose accepting the boundaries of the world we live in. You're constantly looking for opportunities to expand the limits placed by the real world. When your Uranus is in the 10th house, the concept of identifying with a career may be alien to your basic nature. You are fiercely independent and hate to be defined by any one thing that you do. Constantly on the move in your career, you will shy away from identifying with one. You will do what you do in a creative and competent fashion, yet you will enjoy maintaining your own unique identity. Hierarchies and power games at work will turn you off. You prefer the equality and freedom of flat structures. When your Uranus is in the 11th house, your independence doesn't allow you to identify too closely with any group or social circle. Goals and ambitions for you are idealistic. You crave your ideals and may not be willing to compromise them to fit in with others. Thus you go around life feeling slightly superior to and perhaps disdainful of people who compromise their ideals just to fit in. If your Uranus is in the 12th house, a burning need for freedom and a deep altruistic desire to change the world you live in underlies your actions, but you will shy away from articulating this need and desire. Depending on your situation, this may play out in various ways. As an example, if you're a successful business person, you might join or start a program to encourage young entrepreneurs. Or you might simply choose to quietly give young entrepreneurs breaks when you can. Let's keep going. Neptune's position in the house in the natal chart reveals an area in life where we tend to ignore or avoid reality, preferring to see something better, higher, or more meaningful. When your Neptune's in the 1st house, you might express yourself artistically and come across as gentle, sensitive, and dreamy, especially if Neptune is close to the ascendant, within 10 degrees. You are extremely sensitive to your environment. Others tend to see whatever they want to see in you, and you thus can come across very differently to different people. You might tend to encourage this even without knowing. Your appearance and mannerisms tend to be chameleon-like. You are a peace-loving person. When your Neptune's in the 2nd house, you may prefer not to attach too much value to money. But if this is overdone, there can be quite a few problems in life concerning money and ownership. You might make money through artistic pursuits, but must avoid the potential pitfalls of putting too much faith in ideas that don't have enough grounding in reality. Financial advice is important to obtain. You may have developed a non-materialistic personal philosophy. This might work well for you, but it could also lead to impractical attitudes and money problems. When your Neptune's in the 3rd house, dry, cold facts are hard for you to absorb, so traditional academics might not appeal. However, you're talented at visualization and whole-style learning. You are perceptive and dreamy, although you often have your head in the clouds and might miss important details. Sticking to schedules can be difficult, and so can tending to errands, communications, and other necessary daily activities. You might tune out when you hear specific directions and consequently miss helpful details. You might, as a result, frequently be late for appointments or miss them altogether. When your Neptune's in the 4th house, your childhood was likely complex, likely due to an especially sensitive, absent, preoccupied, or confusing parental figure. Early home life may have been chaotic in some manner, and you might have failed to achieve a strong sense of identity and groundedness as a result. You might long for a stronger sense of home, family, or mothering and nurturing in your life. This might lead you to create an extended family of sorts that includes non-family and helps you to feel loved and nurtured. Or you might be a mothering figure yourself, giving of yourself quite freely, and perhaps hoping to receive unconditional love and nurturing in return. When your Neptune's in the 5th house, you are an imaginative and creative person with a strong sense of drama. You are inspired by art and feel compelled to express yourself in a fantastic or dramatic manner. You could be an excellent actor. You might also be an especially creative teacher or caregiver, perhaps drawn to helping children with special needs. You have an exceptionally strong need to be appreciated, particularly on romantic and creative levels. Your love life involves a lot of fantasy, and often your deep need of drama can lead you to see things that you want to see. Your romantic perceptions may not be accurate as a result. With Neptune in the 6th house, you may easily gloss over the details of managing day-to-day affairs. Perhaps you have adopted a personal philosophy that life means more than just sticking to routines, making lists, and organizing bills to pay. When your Neptune's in the 7th house, you are inclined to give more to a partnership, including marriage, than you take. There may be a tendency to wear rose-colored glasses when it comes to the selection of a partner, in an attempt to find a soulmate. The need for a strong psychic or intuitive link with a partner is so strong that your perceptions in partnership are not accurate. When your Neptune's in the 8th house, there is a spiritual longing with this position. You might often experience deja vu or other psychic phenomena. You pay attention to dreams, and you might enjoy analyzing them. Sexual fantasies or role-playing can be strong themes in your life. You might yearn for a spiritual form of ecstasy on a sexual level, a soul connection. You might feel that your needs on this level are always just out of reach. You might be a giver in bed, and perhaps feel that you give more than you get. Alternatively, you could be in the complete opposite position, in which you seek partners who are exceptionally giving on a sexual level. Either way, there is an imbalance, and you could be left wanting. When your Neptune's in the 9th house, you believe that anything is possible and have extraordinary faith in the universe. This faith can bring about positive circumstances, but if taken too far, might lead to wastefulness and laziness. You may depend too much on being saved one day, and avoid some practical responsibilities in the meantime. You might make lofty plans that don't get off their ground, or that fail to materialize because you have neglected important practical details. The faith you have can certainly carry you far if you keep your feet on the ground and recognize that you are in the driver's seat when it comes to steering your life in a particular direction. When your Neptune's in the 10th house, you have exceptionally strong intuition when it comes to current trends, business, and the public wants, and you are likely to bring much creativity, vision, and artistic sense to your career. This position is good for a career in the arts, with the media, and in the helping professions, and involving charity work. If challenged, Neptune here can point to drifting without a clear direction, or a lack of clearly defined goals. You may find it hard to find a calling in life, perhaps because of fears that a particular profession will be less than ideal, or due to a fear of your being less than perfect. When your Neptune's in the 11th house, you have a very accepting, humanitarian, and idealistic view. You are especially idealistic about friendships, always adapting and displaying much flexibility with people, but hopefully not to the point of being taken advantage of. Some with this position are so accommodating and non-discriminating with their choice of friends that they leave themselves open to being deceived or used. You may find it very challenging to draw up boundaries when it comes to how much of yourself you give up in order to keep the peace in friendships. When your Neptune is in the 12th house, you possess exceptional intuition, and you are able to draw upon tremendous inner strength and faith when in a pinch, which might surprise others because of your easygoing and possibly even timid manner. You may be exceptionally sensitive, but not always able to express your compassion and concern in direct ways, which can give rise to feelings of guilt. If you deny the spiritual side of your nature, you run the risk of chronic discontent, and you may feel very vulnerable to normal changes in life, fearing that you may not be able to handle them. Finally, let's talk about Pluto. By house, the position of Pluto shows where individuals search for truths and deeper meaning. When your Pluto is in the first house, you radiate intensity, and others' first impressions of you tend to be strong one way or the other. In fact, you might often intimidate others with your manner, whether it's your intention or not. You can be very protective of your privacy, yet you generate more intrigue and interest with your strong presence. If Pluto's in your second house, when it comes to building your resources, your instincts are powerful. It's not very easy for you to let go of things as you attach much sentimental value to your possessions, or you might hold on to things because you fear poverty or because you fear the feeling of helplessness and wanting. Some with this placement feel a powerful need for control over the money and possessions. You could be driven to make money. When your Pluto's in the third house, you rarely accept what you hear or what you read as truths. Your mind is very analytical, and you instinctively search for hidden meanings. You can be exceptionally persuasive in your self-expression, whether through the spoken or written word, simply because you communicate with authority, conviction, strength, and decisiveness. When your Pluto's in the fourth house, early experiences may have led you to feel self-protective or to be secretive about yourself. A parent might have been secretive or ashamed, for example, and this pattern is deeply ingrained in your psyche. You might feel a sense of guilt about where you came from, even if you mostly feel proud of your roots. When your Pluto's in the fifth house, you possess powerful creative impulses, and you can invest much energy and passion into the creative arts, romance, or child rearing. You take great pride in and invest much of your ego into whatever it is you produce or create. When your Pluto's in the sixth house, you are a hard worker and you can be quite protective or private when it comes to your work output. While you're excellent at analysis, you can also easily become obsessed with finding an answer to problems, perhaps even finding problems that others overlook. With Pluto in the seventh house of the horoscope, power struggles and close personal relationships are themes. This can play out in a variety of ways. You might simultaneously fear and desire complete absorption in a close one-on-one relationship. You can find yourself both drawn to and resistant of close partnerships, fearing loss of control over your own life. People who are intense, jealous, possessive, obsessive, or seem powerful tend to draw you in. If your Pluto's in the eighth house, you have a natural attraction to all that is hidden, taboo, or dark. This fascination can lead you to experience more unusual events than others. A natural psychologist, you are an expert at cutting through appearances and getting to the heart of matters. If your Pluto's in the ninth house, you are extremely attached to your opinions and belief system. Due to this attachment, debates might too easily turn into arguments if you are not careful. You are persuasive and intelligent with a probing and incisive mind. Your opinions are strong and well researched. You are able to back up your arguments and enjoy doing so. At your worst, you can be obsessed with converting others to your beliefs. If your Pluto's in the 10th house, there is something very unique about you that makes you stand out from the crowd. Your ambition is well developed, or you pursue your goals with great focus and determination. You can have a strong interest in research, making improvements, understanding how things work, and transformation. These are qualities that you use most notably in your career or in your dealings with the public. Some of you may have a parent or parental figure who is quite driven or worked in healing or research professions. If your Pluto's in the 11th house, you can have an all-or-nothing approach to your friendships or group associations, and power or control issues can frequently surface. As well, your social life may go through rather drastic changes. Friendships may often begin with intensity. Loyalty is most important to you in even a casual relationship. And if your Pluto is in the 12th house, you are inclined to go deep, explore the meaning of your dreams, and analyze your personal psychology. You're also quite adept to comprehending others' motives. It's possible you discover that you have healing powers and that you tune in quite quickly to other struggles and vulnerabilities, understanding more than most. And that is it for all of our planets and all of the houses. I do have the blog posted with the full transcript of this podcast episode on my website. That's Lorena Freya, FREYJA.wordpress.com. That is posted today. And next week, you can expect a podcast episode about the aspects in the horoscope and what each aspect means. Now, I'm not going to go through each and every planet and aspect of each planet with these, because that's just way, way, way too many to go through. That would be hundreds, probably maybe even thousands. I don't know. I'm not going to do that math. But I'm not going to go through all that. But I am definitely going to go through what each type of aspect actually means. Like, what's a square, what's a trine, what's conjunction, what's opposition, all of that good stuff. And I'm going to go through like what it actually means in your natal chart, that kind of deal. And as to what kind of resources you can use as far as where to decipher what it means in your particular natal chart, as to like what each planet would mean, where you can go to find out that information. All right, guys. If you like this episode, go ahead and give me a follow. You can also follow me on Instagram. That's at Lorena Freya. That's LORENAFREYJA. I'm also on Facebook, Journey into Witchcraft. I am also on Twitter at Lorena Freya. I also, what's it called? I started a Patreon. And I do have all these podcast episodes on there for free. So those are open to the public. And I have started a $5 a month membership that actually has it has my grimoire on there, including all of my spells. So if you're interested in learning like spell work, I have all of my spells on there. And it's quite a few spells. It correlates to different spell times too, which I have listed in there when the best times to do these spells are. So, if you're interested in that, I do have a Patreon as well. It's under Journey into Witchcraft. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening.